I'd like to request the following people to get to the podium. Bernard Van Lawe, Johan Swenen, Jonathan Mweke, the CAADP program manager, Godfrey Bahigwa, Clement Ajololo, I'd also like to call Huyam Ahmed Mohamed Elanin Sali, Director of the AU IBA. And finally, Sam Benin. Once again, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's great to see all of you here. This is the place to be if Africa is part of your domain and you have Africa at heart and you are also interested in agriculture as well as economic development as well as growth for the continent. So we are here on a session, a new chapter for CAADP. We will be hearing a lot about what that implies. The Kampala CAADP Declaration and CAADP Strategy and Action Plan. And we talk about a new chapter because, as we all know, we've run through 2 cycles of CAADP already, and we'll be hearing a lot more related to that. So just to give us a sense of why we are here in terms of the objectives for this meeting. Specifically, we want to review CAADP's achievements and challenges so far, with highlights on past CGIAR engagement. So that would be one thing, is to review how the CAADP operation in the 2 previous cycles has been, and also make some reflections on what we see as CGIAR engagement in that process. There will also be a presentation of the new CAADP strategy for 2026 to 2035. Now that is very vital, very crucial policy direction, which we will hear in that particular presentation. Then we will also have a presentation on the African Common Position on Resilient Livestock Food Systems. The livestock food systems is a domain that is highlighted very strongly in the CAADP in the strategy, for CAADP. So we will try to see how that links with the livestock food system. And then we would identify areas and mechanisms. How can the CGIAR engage better? How can we engage stronger? What do we need to do to make sure that our own operations are aligned to the realization of the CAADP targets and objectives. So it's going to be a very rich sharing. And at the end of it, we will hope to have some participants who may have some comments or questions to be able to share. But there will be an exercise, a Mentimeter exercise, where we will be showing you the link. You will get to know the details later on. And that Mentimeter exercise is designed to give you the opportunity to address some specific aspects of the issues that we are dealing with. Finally, we would have in the inner realm, you see a set of chairs that are there. We would like to invite all the directors generals of the CG centers who are here to come over there, take the floor, and we will have some interaction with them in that regard. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, my name is Kwesi Atakra. Let me make a disclaimer before I hand it on. On this system, it says I'm the director for systems and I've forgotten what it is, country alignment or whatever. That's a position I held about almost 10 years ago. I'm now a peacefully retired person. I am titleless, but I am a friend of the CGIAR. So that's the framework with which I come. And I also believe strongly in CAADP. So when you have the CGIAR and CAADP coming together, then I have to be there. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, let's invite our two keynote presenters. Not keynote, opening remarks. The first would be Bernard Van Lawe. And let me also say Bernard is also representing Dr. Simeon Ehui, who had to rush off to Abidjan this morning. And we are grateful that Bernard is available to stand in for Simeon. Bernard, over to you.
Yeah, thanks.
Is it working?
Yeah, thanks, Kwesi. And indeed, Dr. Simeon asked me to share a few notes with you as introductions to the session. Good morning, esteemed colleagues, partners, guests. It's a privilege to welcome you to this critical discussion on a new chapter for CAADP. As we know, the Kampala CAADP Declaration, Strategy and Action Plan 2026 to 2035. This gathering provides an opportunity to reflect on progress made under the CAADP framework to chart a course for the next decade of agricultural transformation in Africa. CAADP has been a driving force in aligning Africa's agricultural policies, investments, and strategies in line with the continent's development goals. And this declaration, the Kampala Declaration, reaffirms the commitment of African leaders to prioritize agricultural transformation, strengthen food security, promote sustainable livelihoods. The new CAADP Strategy and Action Plan builds on those commitments, emphasizing innovation, resilience, and inclusive growth. CGIAR is proud to be a partner in this journey, and through our research, our policy engagement, and our partnerships, we are committed to support CAADP's goals by delivering science-driven solutions that enhance productivity, climate resilience, and economic opportunities for Africa's smallholder farms. For IAT specifically, this marks a significant opportunity to align our research, innovation, and partnership with the renewed agenda, thereby ensuring that we contribute effectively to its implementation and impact through cutting-edge science, capacity strengthening, and policy engagement. IAT remains committed to supporting African nations in achieving these ambitious targets set within the strategy. As we move forward, let us work together to ensure that this new phase of CAADP delivers tangible and lasting impact for Africa's agricultural sector and food systems. Thank you. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much, Bernard. And I'd like to call the DG of IFPRI. And let me say this whole initiative started from IFPRI. They were the ones who launched the efforts to get us together. So it is definitely befitting that I call Johan Swinen to come and give us his welcome remarks. Johan, please.
Thank you very much, Kwesi. Good afternoon, colleagues and friends. It is a great honor for me to be here to talk to you on behalf of IFPRI as a host of this event and on behalf of our colleagues from the CGIAR in hosting it. We welcome you to what we believe is a pivotal moment for African agri-food policy and investment. The adoption of the Kampala CAADP declaration and the new CAADP strategy on action plan for 2026 to 2035 marks a renewal of Africa's commitment to transformation. But it's also a bold evolution. It reflects a whole of agriculture and agri-food systems approach. And such an approach recognizes the strong linkages among agriculture, food consumption, nutrition, health, the environment, trade, and livelihoods. And these are very complex issues. Therefore, the strategy is ambitious, but I think it's also essential. If you look at the world today, we are facing numerous challenges. I don't think we need to, you are very well aware of them. They don't need to be repeated in detail here, but it relates from climate shocks, food price volatility, conflicts, rising malnutrition in various forms. And so these challenges, or addressing these challenges, coming up with solutions, require demand systems thinking, integrated solutions, and coordinated action. The Kampala Declaration and the new CAADP strategy and action plan answer that call. Evidence will be critical at every stage, including in the design, the implementation, and the accountability of the process. And we must move beyond pilot process, we must move beyond pilot projects and fragmented interventions. We need to support national and regional investments at scale. And what is more, these investments should be data-driven, inclusive, and results-focused. And that's where the CGIAR system as a whole, and also IFPRI more specifically on our comparative advantage, where we can and must play a catalytic role. And for over the past 2 decades, IFPRI has stood with CAADP. We have provided analytical and technical support to countries. We have worked alongside NEPAD, the African Union, and the regional economic communities and organizations. We have contributed to performance monitoring, to strategic planning, and to the investment design. I should also mention here that IFPRI is a very different organization in its relationship with CAADP than it was 2 decades ago at the start. At that point, about 80% of our staff was based in headquarters in Washington. At this point, less than 40% are there, and most of our staff is in the regions, and particularly in Africa. This does not even account for the transfer of our capacity and our work on CAADP that was part with the start of Academia 2063 back in 2020, which we think is a really important role in this also in terms of capacity building and strength of that in Africa. And I want to give a special thanks also to our new Director for Africa, Were Omane, who is sitting here with us, and Sam Binin, who is on the podium with me here, as who was the Interim Director for Africa. And they have been, with their team, instrumental in designing a recently released strategy for CAADP engagement from IFPRI's side. And so I want to thank them and their teams for this. And I think it's really important for us also in our commitment here. So we're very proud of the history engaging with CAADP. We are ready for the next chapter. And our new strategy, I think, reflects our continued commitment to stronger partnerships, country-led processes, and the collective goals laid out in the Kampala Declaration. So today's event, as was already mentioned by the chair of today, is about dialogue, about alignment, about building momentum, about listening and learning, and see how CGIAR and the partners can best serve Africa's priorities. Thank you again for joining us here today, and I very much look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
I think our motto for this session, in terms of what we're trying to do, is together we can. Working together, we can provide solid support. And I like the point that, excuse me, Johan just made. Now, this is not about establishing pilot projects. There are too many pilots and very few planes. We are moving into substantial, big issues. And that's why it is so crucial that we make sure that whatever we do, there is this strong alignment and engagement with the CAADP process. I also would like to thank IFPRI for the role that IFPRI has played in this process. We know very significantly, IFPRI has really led the CGIAR engagement with the African Union Commission in various dimensions, and we will be hearing some of that. And they do it not only as IFPRI, but as CGIAR, and therefore that is very well appreciated. I don't know if the Principal Secretary in the State Department for Livestock is here with us. He probably is not, or he's on his way. In that case, we are going to move into the very brief technical presentations. We have selected 4 very brief technical presentations that will help to lay the key issues. The first presentation will address CAADP achievements and challenges. And to give that presentation will be Clement Ajololo, who is the Principal Program Officer, Agriculture and Rural Transformation at AUDA, Nepal. Clement, you have 8 minutes.
Thank you very much, Program Coordinator, and good afternoon. Distinguished panelists, esteemed researchers in the House, policymakers present, partners from around the globe, ladies and gentlemen. I do not have a PowerPoint slide presentation, as you may have heard, but I have few remarks to share on CAADP achievement and highlight few challenges that face CAADP implementation. Let me begin by underscoring that the panel was supposed to have been my director, Madam Estherine Fotobon, who could not make it here because of other equally important assignment happening at the same time. So allow me to deep dive into the statement from ADA NEPAD. It is really an opportune time. And if you are also listening or have heard a rumor that the world currently stands at a very defining moment, you are probably right. From the geopolitical shifts to policy retreats on global agreements such as climate change, which despite scientific evidence shows that climate change is no longer a distant threat, but a present crisis destabilizing our food systems. Ladies and gentlemen, the stake could not be higher for Africa, particularly in the context of the CAADP agenda. But let me be clear, this is not a story of despair. It is actually a call to action. So let me give a brief background to the CAADP for the sake of everyone in the House that may not have the full history. As you may know, CAADP as a framework was adopted in 2003 through the Maputo Declaration as a policy framework of the African Union New Partnership for Africa's Development, then called NEPAD, now the African Union Development Agency, still NEPAD. It has been an instrumental framework that has helped advance agricultural transformation, food security, economic growth across the continent. But wait a minute. It's 20 years after the CAADP declaration. What have we achieved in these 2 decades? Allow me to share some few highlights. One would be through the CAADP agenda, we have seen growth in agricultural sector through increased spending. As you may also recall, the Maputo Declaration had a target of member states committing to spend at least 10% of national GDP to achieve 6% growth in the agricultural sector. And throughout the years, we have seen incremental public spending in agriculture. And that also is evident to agriculture as a sector in Africa being one of the fastest growing globally. Ladies and gentlemen, the CAADP framework also helped us in achieving policy harmonization. Through the CAADP agenda, Africa realized that we needed to strengthen our planning systems and have them harmonized. We initiated the National Agricultural Investment Plans, called NIBs, which are in alignment with the CAADP principle. And many member states have, at its inception, about 40 member states signed compacts. And that helped to really ensure that agricultural sector policies are harmonized, not only at the country level, but also at the regional level with what we call the Regional Agricultural Investment Plans, or the RIPs. Dear colleagues, we have also seen agricultural productivity growth. As evidence from our data collection, some African countries have increased agricultural productivity due to better farming practices, improved input provisions that have improved, and capacity strengthening. We also had promotion of agro-industrialization and trade. And as part of the Agenda 2063 flagships, you will also recall that Africa has operationalized the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement that is also facilitating trade and access to markets and so forth. Recently, the African Union also initiated the Common Africa Agro-Pacts initiative with great potential to transform the continent agriculture and boost the continent integration through trade and industrialization. I begin to share the good story also to say, through CAADP, we have promoted partnerships and inclusivity. CAADP framework have helped us strengthen collaboration between governments, our development partners. We have a platform called the Development Partner Coordinating Group, the DPCG, which also is something to attest to how organized we are around the CAADP agenda. The private sector is also coordinating. We have an instrument called CAPEF, the Country Agri-Business Partner Framework, which is also helping to bring the private sector on board in the CAADP agenda. We also have the CAADP non-state actor platforms or actors. We also have the CAADP parliamentarian network that is also helping to provide the necessary oversight that we need in CAADP implementation. Our focus on food security initiative have also reduced hunger and food insecurity in some regions, although it still persists that we are not a food secure continent, work in progress. We are not there yet. In terms of monitoring and accountability, through the CAADP framework, we have developed tools such as the biennial review mechanism that help us to assess progress and ensure accountability among our member states and all stakeholders. We have built capacities for joint sector reviews at the national level to ensure inclusive and transparent governance of our agricultural sector. We have seen that there is a consistent improvement by at least 12 member states that are improving their performance overall across the CAADP targets. Now, I just said we are not there yet. So what are the constraints? I would like to share a few challenges, and they are in few categories. We have seen inconsistency in implementation. Many countries struggle to fully implement the NIPES or adhere to the 10% targets. And that is evidenced through the 4 cycles of the biennial review process that we have completed. Limited funding and underinvestment still persist. We still see that public investment is still not up to the commitment levels. We are also seeing still over-reliance on external funding rather than sustainably mobilizing domestic resources for implementation. Issues of climate change and environmental degradation are persistent, and this is causing rising vulnerability of our agricultural and food systems to climate shocks. And we also see suboptimal adoption of climate smart technologies in the agricultural sector. We have also set out to strengthen institutional capacity. It's happened to be a work in progress. Implementation capacities also are very uneven across the member states, and those are areas that need further strengthening. We also see that our inability as a continent to achieve great growth in the infrastructure space also begin to hinder the agricultural sector, issues of road, storage, and so forth. In terms of ending hunger, we are still the continent that, despite progress that we have made, food insecurity and malnutrition remain widespread among many of our regions. Africa is not on track to meet the food security and nutrition targets of the SDG 2030, as well as the Malabo target of ending hunger by 2025. We are in 2025, it's not gonna happen. So we have to be recognized in the sense of that. Our data and monitoring processes also have data quality issues and gaps and lack of knowledge management, robust knowledge management to really help us monitor and track well. So ladies and gentlemen, now from the previous speaker, we've heard what the CGI has done and helped in the CAADP process. So let me not labor on that in the interest of time to say that what action should be taken more. We hope that the CGI will strengthen its alignment of the impact areas to the CAADP Kampala's framework that you have already lined out, and we support that. The AUD and NEPAD commits also to the anticipated output from this particular side event, particularly if we have to sign any commitment to action to implement. So thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. When it comes to CAADP, we all know the mother is the African Union Commission. But when it comes to delivery, there is always the need for a midwife. And in this particular context, there is a midwife that has been working with the mother to deliver the new CAADP baby. So it gives me great pleasure to call on Dr. Godfrey Bahigwa, who is the Director of Rural Economy and Agriculture at the Africa Union Commission, and he is the official midwife for CAADP Kampala. Godfrey.
Being a man, I'm the mid-husband. What is the clicker? Yes, thank you very much. I'm Godfrey Bahigwa. I'm the Director of Agriculture and Rural Development at the African Union Commission. It's a pleasure to be here to share with you briefly the contents of the new CAADP Strategy and Action Plan 2026-2035. After this session, Kwesi, we need to sit down and talk about how you retire and continue working. Yes. The slides are not moving. Can you move it for me? Yeah. Okay, very good. Yes, so I have three aspects to talk about. And Clement has already made my life easier. He has already given the brief history on CAADP, progress made, and challenges. So I'll skip that and talk about looking ahead. Then I'll delve into a little bit of the contents of the strategy and action plan. And I will end that with my thoughts or suggestions on what the CGIAR can do to support the implementation of this agenda. Next. Next. Yes, so you have already heard from Clement that this CAADP agenda has been around for actually now 22 years, because it was 2003 and we are now in 2025. So the CAADP agenda is part of the broader African ambition, which is called the Agenda 2063. And so CAADP supports the implementation of Agenda 2063, focusing on agri-food systems transformation. And it has been implemented through 10-year cycles, as you heard from Clement, 2003 to 2013, then 2015 to 2025, and now have the third cycle, 2026, 2035. Next. Yes, again, as you heard from Clement, these are the two previous cycles, and I will not delve onto those. Let's move the next slide. Yes, so looking ahead, so you had clearly the progress that has been made over the last 22 years, and Clement has outlined the challenges that remain in order to attain food security on this continent, address malnutrition, create jobs for our youth. So looking ahead over the next 10 years, what do we see as the drivers of agri-food systems transformation? One, as you all are observing on our continent, we see rapid urbanization across our continent, which means there's going to be increased consumption of processed foods on this continent. So agro-industrialization has to be a driver of agri-food systems transformation on this continent. Second, we see economic growth happening across the continent on average at 4% per year over the last 15 years, which is good. And that means there is increasing per capita incomes on the continent. And that means people are becoming wealthier. And when that happens, you have consumption, especially of animal-sourced foods. So livestock is an important aspect of this. Number three, Africa's population is expected to double between now and 2025, from the current around 1.4 billion to 2.5 billion. So we have to be prepared to feed these additional 1.2 billion people. And so what we do over the next 10 years is going to be very important. And number 4 is that we see a lot of technological innovations that are happening, especially from the CGIAR community, the technologies that you are developing that have to support agri-food systems, especially generation of climate smart technologies. But we also, as you heard from Clement, climate change is on us. And so what we do to generate technologies to raise agricultural productivity over the next 10 years is going to be important. So these are the 5 key drivers of agri-food systems on our continent that we have to be aware of. Next. Next. So I should also have mentioned that the formulation of this strategy and action plan is not something done by the AU Commission working with ODA NEPAD. It has involved multiple stakeholders. We consulted very widely. We had 5 regional consultations led by regional economic communities across our continent. We had 13 technical working groups, including some of them led by the CGIAR, to support the generation of evidence to inform the strategy. And then we also had independent memoranda. We had over 50 submissions from youth, women, civil society, and we collected all that to come up with what will be the key focus areas for agri-food systems transformation over the next 10 years. So this is a widely owned document that we have put together. And the 10-year CAADP strategy and action plan has 6 strategic objectives. These strategic objectives are building on the CAADP Malabo declaration. So we are not abandoning the Malabo declaration. We are looking at those areas where we made good progress, but also, and taking those forward, but also addressing the gaps that were there. So as you see these strategic objectives, the first one being intensifying sustainable food production, agro-industrialization, and trade. This is related to both the 3rd and the 5th CAADP Malabo objectives. Number 2 is on boosting investment financing in transforming agri-food systems. This builds on the 2nd commitment in the Malabo Declaration. The 3rd strategic objective is on ensuring food and nutrition security across the continent. This builds on the 3rd CAADP Malabo commitment. The 4th one, which is on advancing inclusivity and equitable livelihoods, this is where we emphasize, and this is relatively new, a little bit of these elements were there in the Malabo Declaration, but not as strong. So we want to make sure that we bring on board youth and women in a strong way, in an inclusive manner to drive agri-food systems transformation. So this is relatively new. The 5th strategic objective is on building resilient agri-food systems that can withstand the shocks and stressors of agri-food systems. You heard about climate change, civil conflict, disruptions in food systems globally. So this builds on strategic objective number 6 in the Malabo Declaration. The 6th and last strategic objectives over the next 10 years is on strengthening agri-food systems governance. This is new. So we have observed that in order to transform agri-food systems, leadership at country level is critical. It is very important. When you have a president or a prime minister that actually believes in the importance of agri-food systems or agriculture, we have seen a lot of progress being made. And so that is the best for emphasizing the need for this being a separate or independent strategic objective. Next, and I'm about to finish. This is my last slide. So what can the CGIAR do? Given that, and I said this yesterday in one of the side events, some of the brightest minds on this continent are in the CG systems, they are in the national agri-food systems, national agricultural research systems. So what can you do? And I think you had this from your generating evidence to inform investment choices at country level is a comparative advantage for the CGIAR to do and make that evidence available for countries to help with the choice of investment given the targets in the Kampala Declaration as well as other national targets. Number two, we would expect that as countries are formulating the next generation of national agri-food systems investment plans, that you can mobilize yourselves and provide that technical support to the countries. And number three, especially for the centers that undertake biophysical research, you should generate and disseminate those technologies to be able to drive agricultural productivity forward. There is also a fourth one that I did not put here. Later this year, we'll be organizing a meeting to define the new set of indicators to track the progress of the implementation of the Kampala Declaration. So we already have a set of indicators from the Malabo era, but because of the new areas that we have put in the strategy and action plan, we need to develop and define new indicators. And the CGIAR can make a contribution to the definition of the new set of indicators for the Kampala Declaration. And with that, I thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Godfrey. Definitely, Africa is proud to have a structure in place that organizes political policy framework and engagement. And these issues we're talking about are really issues that have been signed by heads of state. So if we have something within CAADP, we can believe that if we go to our Minister of Agriculture or Minister of Environment, and we relate what we are trying to do in our countries and our regions to what they themselves have signed in the framework of CAADP, it really benefits all of us to move forward. So the next presentation we're going to have brings in a dimension which is very important, but oftentimes not adequately highlighted. And this is the issue of livestock. So I want to call on Huyam Ahmed Mohamed Elamin Sali. That's a very long name. I want to call upon him. He is the, sorry. Pardon me for that. She is the director of the AU Inter-Africa Bureau for Animal Resources, AU-IBA. So please, we welcome you to share your insights with us.
It's okay. Yeah, thank you. So my name is Huyam Saleh. I think this is more shorter than the full name. I will be presenting on how to advance the new CAADP strategy implementation through building resilient livestock food systems. I think, very fast, you have done it already. Okay, so there's key roles for the livestock, and I think there is no even space to bring all of it, but just to highlight how livestock is contributing to provide us with nutritional elements that are very important to address the malnutrition in our continent and also to support the pregnant women and youth. As 14% of the world's calories intake are coming from the livestock. Within the livelihoods in Africa, 35% contribution to the agricultural GDP is coming from livestock, with 350 million people depending directly on livestock industry. For the environment, it drives bioeconomies, but also through healthy and sustainable livestock systems, we are contributing to the ecosystem balances and also supporting the biodiversity in the continent. In the health, through the livelihoods, of course, bringing money to the bucket will be able to support the health of our African peoples, but also healthy animals can contribute to preserving and maintaining the human health and the public health, knowing that 70% of the diseases affecting humans are coming from zoonotic origin. Just to set the scene on the present situation and the challenges that we have in terms of the number of populations that will be coming within 2050 and the needs for all these proteins. With considering all the challenges that we have in place, the climate change, the limited natural resources, and the increased emerging and re-emerging diseases, and the impact will be that food and nutrition security will be a challenge, and there will be weak economies and weak workforce. So for that, building resilient and sustainable livestock systems is crucial. Coming to the animal resources inclusion in the CAADP process, during the first two CAADP strategies, I can say that livestock were or was considered but weakly. So the animal resources interventions were only explicit 7 indicators out of 47 indicators for agricultural development. But after that, for the 4th biennial review report, we managed to bring different indicators, including the livestock seeds and also the sanitary and phytosanitary measures indicators. And within the 4th biennial review, 38 member states in the African Union were able to report against those indicators. And through the livestock development strategy to Africa, we are contributing to the implementation of the CAADP. So within the current or the new approved and endorsed strategy, 2026-2035, and with CGIAR and other partners, African Union Commission managed to produce 12 independent memorandum covering different animal resources sectors, including animal biotechnology, feed and fodder, pollination services, animal health, welfare, and One Health, and also targeting investments, pastoralism, and also fisheries and aquaculture. This led to the inclusion of animal resources to this current endorsed CAADP action plan to ensure that sustainable and resilient agri-food systems for healthy and prosperous Africa will be achieved. So the inclusion of the livestock has been featured over the 6 strategic objectives. Just to highlight that under the first strategic objective, we have included promoting the animal seed systems for resilient breeds, of course, and strengthening the livestock contribution to the economies and waste management. Under the second strategic objective, strengthening public and private partnerships across livestock, value chains, and animal production and health and trade were included. And under the third strategic objective to ensure food and nutrition security, we managed to insert the increase of the production of the animal resources in general, while also addressing and supporting animal disease prevention and control, strengthening the production of the feed and fodder, fisheries, aquaculture, and also supporting the indigenous breeds, and strengthening the implementation and compliance with the SPS. Under the fourth strategic objective, strengthening inclusive green finance mechanisms and also bridging the gender digital divide and supporting the different animal resources digital tools. And for the fifth strategic objective, We're speaking about building the capacities on climate adaptation and mitigation strategies. And here we are looking forward to support and to strengthening the Africa common position regarding livestock and climate change. And of course, through the governance strategic objective, we'll be able to coordinate and maintain the development of the livestock system in Africa. To do that, the African Union Commission with the AU member states, we are looking forward to building more partnerships. Currently for the governance, which is led by the AU member states and the regional economic communities with the AUC the African Union Commission institutions. We're looking for strengthening our partnership with CGIAR through the different institutions, including ILRI, CAADP, FPRI, and others. And under the global agenda, partnership with FAO, with the World Organization for Animal Health is needed, with also the partnership with the development partners to ensure good implementation. Coming to my last slide, call to CGIAR to support the implementation of the CAADP regarding the livestock. We're looking forward to supporting the indicators framework, especially with the huge inclusion of the livestock in this current CAADP, to ensure that the member states will be able to report, again, it's smart indicators that will be indicating the impact of our interventions as partners and also the member states' achievements. Bridging the extension gaps, CGIAR can support different digital tools to support genetics, feed and fodders, vaccines, and different innovations, and to disseminate these knowledge products. Building knowledge-based economies through the CGIAR knowledge hubs and databases to inform policies like the RIPES and the NIPES, and the regulatory framework to support investments addressing the gaps in our livestock value chains in the continent, and also invest in joint programs aligning the CGIAR research programs and priorities to support the national and regional and continental needs for sustainability and impact achieving through the livestock development to the continent. By this, I thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for that very relevant presentation on livestock. It reminds us that livestock is not just starting in the Kampala target. It was there all the way from Maputo, even though it was not as significant. But as we get into the Kampala domain, we see that livestock has become very strong, and it can be seen in each of the strategic objectives. Thank you so much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've heard a lot about the CGIAR engagement. So in our next presentation, which is the final technical presentation, we're going to hear some lessons from CGIAR support to implementation of CAADP since the beginning. So we're going to have lessons, and I'd like to call Dr. Sam Benin, who is a senior research fellow at IFPRI, to give us that presentation.
Yes, thank you, Kwesi. So Kwesi already introduced what I'm going to do. I have 3 slides that I hope to give you a flavor of what CJ has been doing in terms of CAADP. What are the lessons for this future engagement that we're talking about? So the framework that CG has been operating in started in 2006. So 3 years after the Maputo Declaration, with mainly via RESACS, which I suppose most of you will know, is the Regional Strategic Analysis and Knowledge Support System that was established in 2006. And this was through an act of CAADP. So those of you who know, CAADP has the partnership platform. So every year it reviews what CAADP has done, and then has some decisions. So in the meeting in 2005, the idea of having, a strong support in terms of analytical system was decided upon. And so this structure was set up and allowing the CGIAR to be a main contributor to CAADP. And so IFPRI, IITA, ILRI, and IMI were the regional facilitators of CAADP, with IFPRI at a continental-wide level, IITA for West Africa, ILRI for East Africa, and IMI for Southern Africa. But working hand in hand with the regional economic communities, SADC, COMESA, and also ECOWAS. And so that was a structure to CAADP. So this was not a random infrastructure. And we also had strong funding support from what Godfrey had mentioned. This is the Development Partners Coordination Group. And so through that, there was a pool funding to do that. And so there's been major outputs, which I want to highlight a few here. And the first one is the Annual Trends and Outlook Report, for those of you who know. So the first one was probably in about 2008, and that has been released every year, both at the continental level, also with some regional publications. And that is the framework in terms of the monitoring and evaluation framework for CAADP, through which every year in the PP, the progress was reviewed. And there's also an annual conference that the ATOR is presented, and to look forward in terms of deciding on what the topics and the issues to be for the next round of ATOR. I must say that this also comes with steering committees and national advisory groups through interactions with the AU institutions that I have talked about. We talked about NAIP and CGIAR through developing the toolkit for developing an NAIP at the country level, has provided support to 30+ countries. Over time, we also added on the AgroDep, through which the Africa Agricultural Trade Monitor was implemented, so becoming a good instrument also for the Continental Free Trade Agreement. And through that, we're tracking over 60 indicators, providing support to mutual accountability. Clement mentioned this in the JSRs, and the CGI also contributing to leading 5 of the technical working groups on the CAADP BR that has been mentioned. And we also instituted a publication series, and through that, we had about 40 working papers and 30 policy issues and notes. And there's more that I may have left out. And then in 2020, the decision came to transfer that to an Africa division, an Africa institution. And so that is when academia was set up. And in 2020, RESAX and also the programs that I've talked about, AgroDep, the MAMO panel, were transferred to Academia 2063, basically taking over the infrastructure in terms through which this support was happening. At the time of the transfer, probably the budget was about 8 to 10 million. And this included transferring not only the programs, but staff in the institutions that I've mentioned, and the funding that comes with it. And so since 2020 till now, most of the interactions, because that infrastructure had been moved to academia, the continuing support to CAADP was mostly via individual researchers that had been working, that who maintained in the CGIAR through engagement with Academia 2063. So a lot of the activities that I mentioned were ongoing, but the institutional arrangements were weak and the funding was also quite unstable. So at the time around the development of the new strategy that Godfrey presented, then direct request from AUC, also through providing funding from USAID, helped to garner more of that support. And so, for example, for IFPRI was asked to co-convene one of the technical working groups on the theory of change and results framework. So at the time of this Science Week that was supposed to be held last year, we were planning the same meeting, but to get a CGIAR to be part, to contribute to that development in terms of that theory of change. but it didn't happen. And so that's why we're having it now. Also, several of CG Center staff were part of the 13 technical working groups that Godfrey mentioned. And a few of us were also part of the drafting team, which at the end, Godfrey hosted us as his, in his palace. And you can see some of the people that were part of it. And so that has been a good, in terms of support to that, even though from 2020, it has been more at the individual level rather than having that strong institutional arrangement that I mentioned prior to 2020. So what are the lessons? Basically, as you've heard from the calls, right, from both Clement, Godfrey, and also Madam Huam, that demand for research solutions to various of the issues that they've talked about, CGIAR can provide that, right? And so we have expertise and comparative advantage. And probably we didn't explain that at the time of 2020 when we're transferring RESACs to academia to distinguish the sort of things that we would continue to do. Also supporting CAADP to address these development challenges and achieving the ambitious goals is consistent with CGIAR's mission, right? So if we support them to do that, we're also achieving our mission. And one of the also key lessons is that the institutional arrangements, these formal institutional arrangements with AUC, Outer NEPAD, and the REX, and also the CAADP CG, was very instrumental in how the CGIAR, took on the work. So I have one more slide in terms of closing. So what are the implications for going forward, right? Basically, we anticipate that there will be individual responses, initiatives, even throughout this Science Week. If you go to some of the side events, you hear about people trying to align to the CAADP strategy. So IFPRI recently, we launched our strategy for engaging in that. You mentioned it. There's also the CGIAR policy program, also planning to focus regional engagement in Africa on CAADP. And one of the side events that Kwesi also hosted, this is on the CGIAR, African Agricultural Research, Innovation, and Education Institutions, also looking forward to align to CAADP. But what will be important is that from the point of view that the total should be greater than the sum of the parts, is that we have this collective direct response to the CAADP demands. You've heard about the demands, so we shouldn't beat about the bush. We should just take those right on and see how we can tackle on those directly. And so there are 2 points to doing that. The first is re-establishing the institutional partnerships that we had before, because the CAADP process is very, there's political, it's also technical, but there are key infrastructures that helps to garner the different support from the stakeholders. So we need to re-establish these institutional partnerships to help us move forward with whatever we want to support with. So for example, there's a new commissioner on board. We used to work with the previous one, Joseph Asako. We have a new commissioner for rural agriculture, rural development, rural economy, and sustainable development. We need to link up with them, go and visit them, to share what we are planning to do. In 20 days, Godfrey said we shouldn't call him. He will call us because he's retiring. And so there'll be a new director on board. We need to keep track and engage with that. And then there's a third department also in the AUC, which is the Department of Food Security. That position is yet to be filled. We need to keep track. Whoever is on board, we have to link with them. And we also need to build on and complement ongoing center activities that are responding to a variety of the demands. So Godfrey was mentioning, for example, the next step is defining the indicators. There are several individuals who are already part of that process. So while we are figuring out this collective action and individuals individual initiatives trying to be on there, we should build on some of this already response and to complement them. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Sam. We've heard a lot of very useful things. A lot is going on, and the CG has been involved in a lot. But sometimes when you don't know exactly what the CG has been doing in this regard, it looks like they are doing nothing, but hearing it like this, you see that there is a lot. And I think we need to do better strengthening what we are doing, but also strengthening the communication about what we're doing, because all that is important. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to a very interesting part of the program. I forgot to mention in the beginning that I was actually being assisted in this moderation by my friend Were Omamo, and he is going to come on now and lead a session of Mentimeter use. You've heard a lot. You've heard all these 4 technical presentations. So Were is going to come, and through the Mentimeter, he will give us the instructions. Through the Mentimeter, we can show our own comments or insights or assessments on some of the things that we have heard. So, Were, please.
Thanks, Kwesi, and good afternoon, everybody. Really, thank you for coming and joining us here today. We've heard a lot already. What we want to now do is to have a collective reflection on on the issues on the table, and we want to do it in using this Mentimeter methodology or approach, and we want to look at three issues. First, assessing the CGIAR's current readiness to support the CAADP process. So, where are we now? How did we get here? A little bit of what we've heard today, what we've heard from the speakers already will inform this. Then we want to look at the livestock issue a little bit, the potential of the livestock food systems under the Kampala Declaration. And then finally, looking to the future prospects and relevance of the CG within the CAADP process. So you can see up on the screen there a barcode. Kindly scan that, and that will take you to where we need to go. Or you can go to menti.com and enter that survey code 73622946. But it's much easier just to put on your camera and scan the barcode. So I'll give you 20, 30 seconds to do that. I can still see some phones pointing up there. Anybody still trying to do it? You can show your hands. Or most people have it? Okay. So why don't we go to the first set of issues for our collective reflection. And this is focusing on the CGIAR's current readiness to support the CAADP process. Okay. So the next one. Okay. So the question is, the statement is, the CGIAR has a clear system-wide strategy for engaging with the CAADP process and the AU institutions more broadly. It looks like most of us are agreeing. Most of us are agreeing that this is the case, with some disagreement, some significant disagreement, but largely we think that the CG has a clear system-wide strategy. Maybe we should ask, where is that strategy? If we have it, where is it? All right, we can go to the next one. And that is, CGIAR centers are currently well prepared to support implementation of the Kampala CAADP strategy and action plan. Okay, it looks like we are a very similar kind of response, largely agreeing. Okay. The next statement, that there is sufficient internal coordination across centers to support CAADP as one CGIAR. And here we feel it looks like that we actually are not sufficiently well coordinated. So this is kind of we have a strategy, we say, but we're not well coordinated, which I guess is not contradictory. And the final one in this segment, the CGI's engagement with African institutions has often reflected donor priorities rather than Africa-led agendas. And again, a lot of agreement on that. In fact, a lot more agreement than in the other statements. Okay, we can stop for 2 seconds. Any quick reflections? Any quick comments on this? Just put up your hand and put on your speaker there, the microphone in front of you.
Okay, hello, very long time. And so Kuwaiti too, that's a great place. Okay, I disagree because
You disagree with which one? With the
this last question, the potential of livestock food system under Kampala.
Let's focus for now just on these ones. Yeah? On these,
So we
yeah.
start from the beginning?
Yeah. Just for the one on the first four are dealing with the CGIAR's current readiness.
Okay, the CGIAR had a great role to play, an important role, and especially when unified now as a one CGIAR.
Okay, all right, thank you. And that's Ahmed Sid Ahmed, he used to be with IFAD. Nice to see you, Ahmed. Okay, well, thanks. We can continue to the segment on livestock, as we saw that this is something which has more priority under the Kampala Declaration and Action Plan than before. So a few reflections on that. The first one, the first statement is, okay, continue. So despite its central role in African food systems, livestock remains a secondary priority. And there's strong agreement there that we need to focus more on this. And that actually was also captured in Dr. Salih's comments. The next one. The current policy environment for livestock food system development is clear and coherent with well-defined actionable priorities. So this one doesn't, well, there's more agreement, it looks like. Well, actually, it's actually almost exactly a split between overall agreement and overall disagreement. But there's enough disagreement there to suggest that there's a need to focus on that a bit more going forward. And then the next one. The statement is that there's strong potential for the CG to support livestock transformation in Africa, and very clear and strong agreement on that. So that's what we think about the role and prominence of livestock systems in the CG and in CAADP. And now let's look toward there was this common position on resilient and sustainable livestock food systems, which Dr. Salih mentioned. And it's a goal, a very important issue that is being considered. And we asked you there, what would be the top 3 challenges that you feel that the CG system needs to address? Sorry, what are the top 3 challenges facing the development of this common position that the CG and other continental bodies, such as AU-IBAR, are uniquely well placed to address? So it looks like weak institutional coordination at continental and regional levels would be number 1. And then tied for second is limited recognition of livestock's role in broader ag food systems and limited private sector engagement. And it goes on down. So the top 3 would be those. Hopefully everybody voted only 3 times. You didn't vote more than 3. But that has come out fairly clearly, and this will be important feedback that OAU, AU-IBAR, and ILRI and other partners can carry forward. The others are there, and we will share this going forward. Okay. So that is the reflection on livestock, and now I want to look ahead a bit and really asking about the CGIAR's support for the CAADP process. And the first issue, the first statement is that the CGI support will be critical to achieving the goals of the Kampala Declaration. Go to the next one. And strong agreement, not surprisingly, but I think this is a fair reflection on what is the potential. We heard from Dr. Sally and Godfrey as well on that. The next one is on the CGI's research agenda, and that this is relevant to all 6 of the new CAADP's, all 6 strategic objectives in the new CAADP strategy. This is very clear that it really is, and I think Godfrey made that point quite clearly as well. And the CGI's role, the next one, the CGI's role in Africa's agri-food system is set to increase. This is the strong agreement here. Of course, this requires some adjustment, given our comments about earlier, the comments about the readiness of the CG to contribute. It's clear that this is not an automatic thing, but there is a perception that this is a high potential. And then the final point, the CGI's support to the CAADP process will be meaningful only if it addresses structural issues like governance. And there's, I guess, governance in 2 ways: governance of the CG system within Africa, but also governance of the agri-food system as well. Okay, I think do we have a few minutes for people to reflect a little bit on this? Yeah, so we've had the current view, your reflections on the current situation, your reflections on the role and importance of livestock, and your reflections on what is possible for the CGI going forward. Any reflections on that? Yes, Godfrey, please.
Yeah, thank you. So my comment is going to be on so I saw strong agreement on the importance of the CGIAR research to the CAADP agenda. I think there's agreement there. The question is how to use that evidence or knowledge to actually inform implementation. The question does not give information to say if the CGIAR has all this science and the research products with it, and they can be good for the CAADP agenda, but how do you actually transfer them and make them useful to the member countries or to the member states? I think there is a gap there, and more work is needed to link what you produce in the CGIAR to inform either policy design for those institutions that are doing policy, or to inform adoption of technologies that are being generated by the biophysical research centers of the CGIAR.
Thank you. I think that's a very important point, and we will be getting to it. But let's appreciate Were Mamo for an excellent treatment of this Mentimeter exercise. It shows a lot of, we are still in the mood of discussions. And I want to bring to the stage here all the directors general of CG centers who are here. Please come into this inner ring. And we're going to have a battle between you and the rest of the audience. It's an academic discussion and everything. Please take your seats here. Yes, now what we're going to do, they are constituted into a panel, and I will be addressing some specific questions to them. And I will also be making the floor available for those of you who might want to comment on some of what you hear. Yeah. Okay. You are all very welcome. Good to have all of you. I think the first thing is you have seen all the reflections that were posted on to the 3 questions or the 3 buckets of questions that were raised. And as an icebreaker, I just want to give any of you who would wish to comment broadly on any of the issues that were, presented on the screen. So the floor is open. Please pick a.
I think it's clear based on the comments that people are very passionate about the role that CGIAR can play. They have very strong opinions about that, and they want to be seen, they want to be heard. They want to make sure that the localization of the work that CGIAR does is embedded in the national agriculture research systems. And this is something I've heard in the 2 years I've been a DG, and it reflects what I see, and it reflects the desire people have to be engaging with CGIAR. So,
Excellent. It reflects passion and desire. But before we go on, I'd like you to first of all tell us who you are, yeah, and what center you represent, so that in case you are in the wrong room, we will kick you off this panel.
Thanks, Kwesi. We are all in the correct room. My name is Apollinaire Jikeng. I lead the International Livestock Research Institute, ILRI. We're headquartered here in Kenya and also in Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, and we operate in Africa, Asia, and elsewhere. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. My name is Aminu Aruna. I'm the program leader for Policy Innovation System and Impact Assessment at Africa Rice. I'm also the focal point of Africa Rice with CAADP. That is why I'm here, second by near to my director.
Thank you, Aminu. I am Babukar Mane. I'm the Director General for the Africa Rice Center, and we are headquartered in Côte d'Ivoire.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Jörn Schmidt, and I'm the Director for Sustainable Aquatic Food Systems at World Fish and representing World Fish here on the panel. Thank you.
Wanjiro Kamal Rutenberg, Managing Director, Africa at the Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT, representing my Director General.
Just to say, Wanjiro is the youngest member in all of us, so I just want to say welcome. Welcome to this group. Eliane Balijero, CEO of C4 Aircraft.
Good afternoon. I'm Simon Heck from the International Potato Center. I'm the Director General, usually based in Lima, Peru. I also have ad hoc authorization to represent the International Rice Research Institute in the true spirit of CGIAR integration. Our dear colleague, Dr. Yvonne Pindo, had to step out just now. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm Bernard van Lowe, Deputy Director General Research for Development for IIT, the International Institute of Tropical Agriculture. I'm representing the Director General, Simeon Ewi.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Smith. I'm the Director General at IMI, International Water Management Institute. Our headquarters in Colombo, which is where I normally am, but we work across Asia and Africa.
Okay, my name is Moses Yambi. I'm representing the Director General for the Maize and Wheat Improvement Center, CIMIT. I'm the CIMIT Director for Africa.
I'm Werio Mamo, with IFPRI as Director for Africa and also Director of Development Strategies and Governance. And I am obviously representing the Director General himself. Thanks.
Excellent, excellent. Where I see your seat is removed from the people. Are you trying to separate yourself?
No, I was just making a pathway in case
No,
when you're moving about.
That's okay. You close it so it doesn't look like you are rebelling.
Okay.
Okay, so that first question, that reflections, I thought I saw a hand here. Babukar. Yeah.
Thank you. I also want to share the experience with regards to the answers. It was very overwhelmingly clear that the CGIAR can be able to deliver a lot more towards the CAADP, because as we could have all the 6 areas I think overwhelmingly, most of us said that it's very clear the CG can be able to contribute to each of them. I think that really is a very, very strong statement for all of us who are in this room here.
Excellent. Bernard?
Yeah, I want to comment on the reflections related to that. Our documents are in order, our strategies are in order, but we are not ready. We are not internally organized. Now, coincidentally, yesterday we had a meeting with the Africa-based centers, all the centers, also the offices that are not headquartered here, because there is a function being established in the P25 new CGIAR related to a regional coordinator for Africa. We talked yesterday about the need to develop terms of reference for that particular position, and I think here we have a really critical TOR that the team will probably add to the agenda that we are developing.
Excellent, excellent. That definitely will be a useful instrument to have. And before I call for the next, I would also say that IFPRI can really help us to capture all the suggestions that have been made on what the CG can do, which will be part of the document that we will have to submit formally to the GLP and to the overall leadership. Because it's not just a question of saying we have a potential. Nobody eats potential. It's a question of how do we actually make these things happen. And somehow somebody has to be responsible for that. It would be great, for instance, to have a CGIAR focal person for CAADP implementation. And since we have two very strong points from which that can happen, one is the fact that we have the regional director for continental Africa who is available to take this. And then the second thing is IFPRI. So the two of them putting their heads together, I believe we can make sure that what we are talking about actually takes place. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Just to complement on the reflection, I think it is clear that everybody recognizes that the CGIAR can contribute to the 6 area or strategic objective of the Kampala Declaration. Now, as the director mentioned on the podium, we need to really show how the CGIAR is contributing, and moreover also to evaluate and show. If you take an institution like center like Africa Rice, everything we are doing is contributing directly to CAADP, because it's in Africa, everything is contributing. But how are we raising the voice, showing that? I think that is something that we need to do further to show to the African Union how we are participating.
Thank you. We have a series of other questions coming, so don't worry. In the next question, I'm going to specifically request comments from Simon Heck, from Wanjiru, and from Aminu. So you better listen carefully. Now, CAADP has run through 2 phases already. How would you describe CGIAR's engagement with the African Union Commission or directly with countries in the implementation of CAADP? How strong has our engagement been? We already saw from the framework where they think we have done, but this is an opportunity for you to comment particularly on that. Going beyond that, from your perspective, how strong have we been in engaging? And if you feel there is a weakness, don't be scared to say it out. Yeah, it's not only about what has worked, but where we think things haven't worked. Over to you, Simon.
Yeah, thank you, Kwesi. And again, I'm Simon from SIP. We've had a very strong engagement, in short, right, with CAADP over the last 20 years. It was more at the project level, let's say, which comes with limitations. But I think over this period, we have really elevated that interaction, and that's the credit to CAADP. My main reaction to this morning so far is to really say thank you to CAADP, right? As CGIAR, we own a lot. to CAADP, right? CAADP has opened doors for us in terms of research partnerships, in terms of impact pathways, in terms of elevating nutrition-sensitive, environmentally responsive agriculture up the policy agenda. That's not so much our remit and our voice that was decisive here. It's really the African leadership through CAADP, and we really need to say thank you to that. And this needs to endure, and our performance, our response, the CGIAR can be much better, right? I'm very flattered, of course, people think we're doing such a great job. I guess the closer you get to the real work, the more differentiated that can be. So, but to say a few more specific examples here from our work at CIP, right? We kind of work at 3 levels. One is this continental policy level, where our engagement is quite specific around particular innovations. We've had work on biofortification, for example, and in 2022, the EU adopted a continental declaration on biofortification, right, under the CAADP umbrella, under the leadership of FARA, with inputs from CIP and from other CGIAR centers. This is now being taken forward in the next chapter. There are indicators now on biofortification and nutrition that we can help member states to monitor and to report on. I think that's a positive example around nutrition impacts. Again, it wouldn't have been possible without the higher level policy championship of that. At a more technical commodity level, right, we work on root and tuber crops as CIP, like IATA. Often the national programs can be quite small and under-resourced. One of the advantages of having CAADP around is to be able to form regional networks of NARs around these not yet commercialized crops like sweet potato. And we've done a lot of good work together, again, with FARA and with our national partners. We now have about 13 NARs working very intensively on breeding and seed system for these crops. Again, would not have been possible without CAADP. Thirdly, at country level, right? Okay. Indeed, that's where the rubber hits the road very often. That's where investments need to take place. CAADP have opened doors to talk about investment plans for crops like potato and sweet potato. As an example, last year, 2024, Ethiopia launched its first national strategy and investment plan for potato and sweet potato.
Thank you so much.
Yesterday, signed an agreement with Sudan as well to do the same.
Okay, so there's a lot of good stuff that is happening, and thank you very much. Thank you also for thanking CAADP, because CAADP has provided this framework, and we are all, working and linking up with that. Okay, so now we're going to hear from Wanjiru Kamal Rutenberg from Alliance of Biodiversity and CIAT.
Yes, and I think my comments echo what has been said and what was reflected in the survey in terms of, I think we do, as the CG, we do a lot, but we're not coordinated, and it's interesting because the AU through CAADP is coordinated. It's us that haven't done as good a job of being coordinated. And to what you were saying about the meeting that we had yesterday, there's movement, and encouraging movement in that direction. I think speaking as the Alliance, similar to a lot of other centers, our engagement with CAADP has been at the activity level, doing the work, not in a coordinated way, but doing the work. 2 things in particular, I think our leadership of ICRA, that is really in the first round of ICRA, where we've been really focused on making sure that climate research reaches, CG climate research reaches the continent, has been an important part. And that work has brought together 11 CG centers, 18 other institutions. We've forged through the first round of ICRA, 241 partnerships, reached 9 million farmers. Originally targeted at 6 focus countries, we've seen spillover effects into 44 other countries. So the work of the CG there has been tremendous. And it's been an honor to get to lead that. Also from the Alliance perspective, the work we're doing with PABRA in terms of beans, securing not just nutrition, but actually the impact that PABRA has had when it comes to livelihood and economics, in terms of turning countries into net exporters of beans, a crop that is on one hand, an incredibly gendered crop, important in the lives of women in particular, as producers, as traders, but also really advancing the aims of the Africa Union and the Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement in terms of trading amongst ourselves. And I think these kinds of work, of projects are going to be increasingly important as the global economic landscape shifts and more of our countries get hit by tariffs by external countries. We need to trade amongst ourselves. And so as the Alliance, we're really interested in how can we scale and replicate PABRA to other commodities. And I think that's again, an important entry point. I can see you trying to stop me, but I have another page of notes. And as she said, I'm the newest kid on the block.
I'll come back to you.
Wait, one more, 30 seconds.
Okay, okay.
I will say also, as just on a personal level, as I'm 4 months in the role as Africa Managing Director, and we're just going into next week a strategy process for the Alliance in Africa. And a lot of this conversation is what I'm taking into that team reflection. And I'm hoping that even as we do it at center levels, where a lot of centers are launching their Africa strategy at this meeting, we can have all of those Africa strategies roll up into a CG Africa strategy. So I'm excited for that.
Excellent, excellent. That's a very important point. We're taking a final comment on this particular issue, and Apollinaire.
I'll be brief. Thank you, Kwesi. Apologies, colleagues, for me coming in late. I think there is history between the CG and the CAADP process. So next year we'll be launching CAADP 3, but we can go back and think about CAADP 1. CAADP 1 came with the Africa Bioscience Initiative. And the CG through ILRI took the responsibility to host one of the science hub, the Bioscience Eastern and Central Africa hub at ILRI. The viability and the strength, the impact of that hub could not have come if it was not the CG. We used that hub to build a very strong CGIAR faculty. The case in point, the nutritional analysis platform to support some of the SIP work here in Nairobi was put as an offering for that. We also set up one of the best genomics platforms in the global south to support plant breeding and all kinds of things. We did a lot of capacity building, closing the gap in countries. I think those are the stories that we need to talk about. They offer a very strong foundation on how the CG can adjust and work even better in the CAADP process. So that was really at the initial stage, alignment of strategy. We shouldn't lose those stories because we have strong ambassadors out there who are very clear of what has been success between CAADP and the CGIAR. It also helps us, we talked where we are at the moment is through the development of the technical working group. I see Godfrey here in the room. He's been a champion ensuring that the CG can bring the best of what we can offer. All the technical groups working to develop the new CAADP came from the CG. We should celebrate that. You cannot be there to cook the food and go away when the food is being consumed. The CG has been there to build CAADP 3. It's our process. We should own it. It's no longer trying to say, what is CAADP 3? We have been there. And we thank the colleagues, I see Joseph Karugi here and many who really burned the midnight oil to ensure that what's in the CAADP process, CAADP 3, really reflects what's the reality on the ground, what are the opportunities, and building on some of the challenges that we face. So I think we should leave this room. My call to action is the CG, we own the CAADP declaration. It's ours. Because in Africa, we're really well coordinated. We have that framework for us to work. And the CAADP process has actually helped us, the CG, to work in a coordinated manner. When you say you have a faculty to support, you can draw scientists from any center. Here in Nairobi, we can do that in Ibadan, we can do it in Addis, we do it very well in Addis indeed. So that's the direction of travel. So for me, it's been a successful relationship. We have to make it better when we launch CAADP 3. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much. The CG should own this process, take it up. I actually skipped Aminu.
Yes.
Yeah, so please.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I will add my voice to that. As I was saying that Africa Rice is a member country organization, 28 member country in Africa. And all what Africa Rice is doing is contributing directly to the CAADP. And also we need to mention that the CAADP, of course, bring this framework, which is very important. So for instance, in the design, the NAIP is a very important instrument, which was brought in by the CAADP, in which we have contributed. And through the NAIP and also the CAD initiative, there were specifically the development of what is called the National Rice Sector Development Strategy, the NRDS, which was developed in 23 countries, which was directly supported by Africa Rice. And the impact of the CAADP is very clear. And in addition to the national strategy, it's also the offensive rice that was developed in West Africa by ECOWAS, strongly supported by Africa Rice and also IFPRI. I think in terms of design of the policy, that is where the CGIAR and center are already contributing. Now, when we come to the implementation, a lot of has been done also. For instance, in 2021, when we did the evaluation, we noticed, for instance, that the improved rice varieties has helped in African country, in 16 African country, to lift out of poverty about 15 million people. And that is contributing directly to the commitment number 1, number 3 and 4, because it's also related to the food security and nutrition. So, and going forward, Africa Rice, we have already a number of projects which will continue also.
No, don't go forward yet.
Contribute to that.
Yeah, I think that's fine for now. We're moving into a very important question, which has to do with strategy. And I'd like the following persons to get prepared to address that. Eliane Ubalijoro, Johan is not here. So Were standing in, Bernard Van Lawe, and Apollinaire Jiken. Now, listen to the question. The CG has come up with the Portfolio 2025 strategy. The development of this portfolio happened almost concurrently with the AUC process of developing the CAADP Kampala strategy and priorities. What steps would your center take to ensure alignment of its strategy and research agenda with the priorities of the new CAADP strategy? So this is not about telling me what you have done, but tell me what steps your center is going to take to ensure that there is true alignment of whatever the center is doing as part of P25 to the CAADP strategy. Who was the first name? What was the last? Yeah, I think it was Eliane.
It's me. Thank you. So I just want to say, I was one of the editors of the RESAC report on African food markets post-COVID. And so I've been following the CAADP area very closely. So for us at C4 we really see that the critical importance of African landscapes is really critical to how we're going to go about looking at the agricultural transformation that's needed for food, for climate, for biodiversity, for enriching our natural capital. It's very key for us to really have an integrated approach on how we're moving forward on that. And it's critical if we want to raise the productivity to the 45% that is in the latest CAADP report by 2035. So we have 10 years to do this. So for me, one of the critical elements is with 65% of soils in Africa degraded, how we're going to harness the power of trees to bring back that soil health, whether it's through the infiltration, better infiltration of water, increased soil organic carbon, leaves from the trees, nitrogen fixing trees, incorporating better nutrition in soil, raising the pH. Those are really critical elements that are going to be very transformative. There are multiple interconnected challenges that we're going to be addressing that we can do through trees, whether it's food insecurity, climate vulnerability, land degradation, and biodiversity. We see immense potential in terms of green tree commodities to look at employment, particularly as we head towards 2035, where half of the workforce on the planet will be African. So how we're going to create jobs for young people is really critical. We can't address any of these issues in an isolated way. So it's really important that we look at multifunctional landscape level approaches, which is integrated in the 2025-2030 CGIAR strategy. So there's good alignment in terms of how this work can do. And we really see integration of agroforestry and forestry national ecosystems as key to accelerating how we can work collectively together in terms of CGIAR. So for our experience, you said you don't want to hear our past experience, but we definitely have a lot of experience in terms of integrated landscapes for regreening Africa, working in the first phase with 600,000 farmers and looking at working with more than 1 million farmers in phase 2. So we're really excited about how we can participate and ensure that the strategy towards 2035 is implemented effectively with our help.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The second one is, what was the second?
Can I go first? I want to.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, apologies.
All right.
Just 3 things. I think when we talk about P25 or even go back to the initiative, it's about the implementation of the CGIAR Research and Innovation 2030 strategy. And that strategy is about transformation of food, land, and water system in a climate crisis. If you take CAADP, you can do word search. They're speaking at the same thing. I think at the highest level, we're aligned. Within that, we have 5 impact areas: biodiversity, gender, job creation, nutritional security, and then the 5th one that I've forgotten. So those 5 areas, impact areas, are aligned. Take the CAADP strategy, they're also there. The next thing is, we started the implementation of this portfolio in 2022. NAS are in there as collaborators. So we transition from the initiative to portfolio 25 together. I think we are aligned at that level, but we don't have we don't have details or the level of granularity that's needed for us to show what we're going to do, across board. But I think the portfolio 2025 also reflects the learning, the consideration for the long-standing collaboration with NAS that we have. Again, we build the portfolio 2025 not just as an instrument to secure window 1, window 2, but also aligning all other bilaterals. And on this bilateral ground, we're still collaborating with the NAS. So I think I don't have to worry about alignment. What is important for us is to clarify the roles, have enough resources to engage in meaningful collaborations. That's where we are. But again, this year, the inception is from January to June, where we are really ensuring that we understand. All the sessions here have a lot of partners around that. Finally, we have the adaptive management that we have to co-learn, adjust things as we move along. So this is my response to this question here.
Okay.
We have been in a collaboration, we'll continue to collaborate.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to remind you again, the question is, what is your center going to do to make sure this link with CAADP is not just at the level of the management, but even at the level of the scientists? They are familiar about CAADP and what CAADP wants to do, and there is some accountability and all those things. Let me pass it on to Were.
Yeah, thanks very much, Kwesi. We've actually just completed that exercise of alignment, where we looked at each of the 6 strategic objectives and tried to understand which parts of IFPRI's portfolio speaks to each objective. And of course, we found that given IFPRI's sort of whole food system approach, we spoke quite clearly to each of those, and that's captured in the strategy document. And it was actually quite inspiring in one sense, because it now is pushing us to be a lot more coordinated internally as we are looking to support CAADP. As Yo said earlier, we've been investing and engaging with CAADP quite a lot, and we're hoping to intensify that and deepen it in partnership with other centers. This, of course, involves a number of things: research and knowledge generation, technical assistance for policy and policy support, capacity development, investments and financing support, M&E, monitoring, evaluation, and learning, which is really important under the CAADP, and of course, stakeholder engagement and convenings. So these are the things that we think we can bring to the table, and really stressing this alignment with the CAADP, which we, as I said, we've done, and it's in the strategy document. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That was a very interesting one, where you've already looked at how your existing projects and new projects match with what the 6 areas of priority are. And I think that that's a good example. I'll be calling Mark also shortly to contribute on this issue as soon as we finish. Was there any other one that I had mentioned? Yeah, Bernard. So Bernard, and then after Bernard, I would like Mark to make a comment on this.
Yeah, just short. Of course, we know that the strategies have been developed simultaneously, and for IIT, it gives both, at one hand, opportunities, but also responsibilities. So we've been discussing at the big picture, at the broad level, there's no disagreement. But we've been discussing internally, what can we do in terms of concrete steps to get better alignment? And we came up with a number of them. Number one, get a more deeper and effective engagement with the structures of the African Union Commission, of the, how do you call it, REAs, and so on. We are doing well, but we can do better. And by doing so, I think we'll be more serious with responding to demand of the continent. It's a word that's used all the time. The second thing is we are trying to align our own portfolio. We work on genetic innovation, agronomy, soil health, climate, nutrition. We want to align this with the key components of the CAADP strategy. We've seen that there's absolutely possible. It's the only way to look for synergies and cooperation if you do this explicitly and properly. The third thing, we are also in IIT talking about our new internal M&E system. We want to align this with the indicator. I think it was referred to. There's going to be a meeting later this year on what are those KPIs. And we want to align our own KPIs to the CAADP one. So whatever we deliver already contributes to what CAADP is about. The fourth thing is really, helping to collect evidence, data to support policy decisions. We were good at that at one time. We're not so good anymore, and we want to reinforce this area in cooperation with IFPRI and other partners that matter. And probably the last thing is, use the structures we have to mobilize the resources for cooperation between what we can do and what the African institutes can do. We have our CAADP program supported by the African Development Bank. There's other opportunities that we can respond to, I think, as we are moving into better coordination of all these other bullets. So this is what we are discussing internally, Kwesi, but any other feedback is welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have also indicated that Mark will also comment on this from the IMI perspective. I remember when you were introduced, there was a loud cheer at the back there. So it means there's a team there. So we should hear what IMI is going to do in this respect.
Indeed, Kwesi, thank you. I don't know who that is. To be clear, I don't know who that is. But indeed, there is a team behind what I'm about to outline. And and as you would understand, I come to this question from the point of view of IMI and from the point of view of water. And I can't help myself when I look at a strategy and action plan like CAADP 3, and I look for the threads of water, and they're very clear. It sets a very clear direction. And on the one hand, part of that is what you expect. So we need water management to enhance productivity in agriculture, in rain-fed agriculture, and in irrigated agriculture. We need enhanced early warning systems and means of managing risks and water risks as those are changing because of climate change and so on. But there's another aspect of the strategy that I really wanted to highlight. And that's, the phrase I have in front of me is picked up from the declaration, from the Kampala declaration, but it's so important in terms of the way I think we should be orienting our strategy from, not just from IMI, but from CGIAR in relation to water in support of the CAADP process. And it says from the Kampala declaration, it says that they are emphasizing that sustainable water management, particularly in water-scarce regions, is fundamental to the transformation of Africa's agri-food systems. So it's not just as simple, sorry, the opportunities are not just as utilitarian as let's manage water better in farmers' fields. It's actually, if we get things right on water, that can trigger and catalyze wider transformation. So if we change access to water, we change access to water for smallholder farmers, for women, for youth, we change and we enhance productivity and water productivity, and we reduce risks for farmers. We support the multiple uses of water across rural communities. We couple that with enhancing energy access and renewable energy and the way that relates to water management and all aspects of rural economies. Then we transform income, we transform equity, we transform aspects of health and nutrition. We open avenues for jobs and markets and building value chains by using water as a catalyst. So as we look at those elements in the CAADP strategy relating to water, keep a focus on that declaration at the beginning of that we can transform through water. And CGIAR collectively brings tremendous strength as we term in our water systems integration roadmap for CGIAR. Tremendous strengths from genes all the way through to basins. Involves all the centers can contribute to this. And I think it's something that as CGIAR go forward with the African Union Commission, that we can develop a deeper dialogue on now about how we move forward, bring to bear the strengths of all the centers, including the networks that we all work with with NARS, but also with water agencies, and perhaps use this opportunity also to make sure we close the gap, which we know is too wide. We close the gap between CGIAR and those other institutions with water and with other things. So thank you.
Thank you. Indeed, water is central in all these issues. We're going to address one issue, and we have just one issue and then a sub-issue. And this I'm going to address to John Schmidt. And then also, we don't have anybody from ICAADP, do we? Okay, we don't have anybody from CIMIT also. Oh, okay, you are there. All right. So that's to you, Moses and John, and then we can get others to join you. But the question is all about this whole big C word, coordination. You saw the slides that were shown from the Mentimeter. People were saying, yeah, everything is there, but the coordination hasn't been as good as it should be. Given the opportunities and advantages inherent within the one CG architecture. What can CGIAR do to improve coordination across centers in supporting the goals of the new CAADP Kampala? What can, the previous question we were talking about, what can your center do? But now we are basically saying, looking at the architecture and the opportunities that we now have, what would you say the CGIAR should do or can do to better align our work and support the implementation of the CAADP agenda? John?
Yeah, thank you very much. And it's always difficult to come in the very end of a panel because so many beautiful things have been said. And I think that the first comment that Apollinaire made was almost like the final statement of the panel. So very difficult to come after that. In relation to the internal coordination, I think we heard that we have this strong alignment of CAADP. And I think it's maybe, for me, it was quite useful to actually go back and say it's a comprehensive African agricultural development program. So it says comprehensive. So, it concludes and, is built on a need and on an ambition. And I think this is important to remember because the need and the ambition, I think, is also reflected in what we are doing and where we can support. And I think in terms of the coordination, Bernard said it very nicely. He said, like, okay, so we have this global alignment. That's great. And we can all very easily agree, that we work together. But when it comes to really working together, then we're working on the ground together, where we are working with all the partners in partnership with all the centers, the scientists across the centers, in partnership with not only the researchers and other organizations on the ground here in Africa, but with the communities. And that's I think this is important. And this is where we have the real coordination. The coordination effort on a CG level is then to identify how we can support that in the most meaningful way. And the multifunctional landscape program has been mentioned, has been singled out as one of the programs. But I mean, maybe that is a way of looking at it. We have a co-location of activities where we can most meaningfully coordinate. And I think that is where the work is also being done. The interesting thing is when you look at the ambition and the targets, and you can take any number that is in the Kampala Declaration. From a WorldFish perspective, by the way, it's also very good that I see fisheries and aquaculture explicitly stated, very important. And if you look into how many people on the African continent are relying on fisheries and aquaculture. But this is exactly the point, because all of these things are interconnected. In a community, we have fisheries, but we have agriculture, we have crops that are being grown, we have livestock, we have all of these different elements. They're dependent on, the climate impacts. We need to understand that. We need to understand how the different activities are operating, what are the governance structures. And so this is, I think, where it then becomes real in terms of the coordination. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Moses, you've been in the system for quite a while. So you have the history of the system. Given the architecture we have now, how can we do things better in terms of coordination for the accomplishment of what the CAADP Kampala has laid out?
Thank you, Kwesi. Are you saying I'm old? Since you are saying I've been around for a while. Yeah, I think the comments that have been made still echo the importance of the science and the CGIAR. What I haven't heard in our talk is about the role of FARA in all this. Where does FARA come in? Between the implementation of the CAADP strategy and the national programs and the CG centers. I bring up this point because when FARA was formed, again, my historical relic, as you said, there was a lot of momentum for the CG to start coordinating even at country level. But as it happens always, when that funding dwindled, that coordination of the CG centers in addressing some common themes that FARA had outlined, again, got lost. So I think in this discussion, we need to find out what is the role of FARA, which again, was created by the AU to interface with the international centers. I know that in recent years, there's been that effort of getting even the integration sites to have the CG centers in a country work on common things in some of the areas, and the most recent effort at having a center that can convene the work of the CG centers in any one country. It is very easy for the CG centers to work together. Unfortunately, most of the time when we come together is when there is a crisis. And that is when there is disease or drought and our skills are required, then we all work together. So I think the question going forward is, how can we work together without a crisis? And therefore also avert future crises that may come in to be able to serve the CAADP. I think we all have a foot in all those objectives. There is the intra-continental trade, I think at a higher level. Many countries don't manufacture cars or cell phones. What is Africa going to trade? It's mainly in agriculture. And again, so what is the role of the CG in enabling, in supporting such initiatives at the continental level as intra-Africa trade that is most likely to be agricultural? So I think it is possible for us to work together. We have shown that before, and I think we can also do it going forward.
Thank you so much. FARA and the agricultural research, innovation, education institutions in the continent are very critical. What we're doing here really is looking at the CGIAR infrastructure and see how we can better organize ourselves, even to be better partners to FARA, better partners to African Union, better partners to, on Monday we had a big session which was just focusing on FARA and the African research institutions to look at some of these key issues. So your point is very well taken. Ladies and gentlemen, we have had a wonderful session, and I think everybody has shown the passion and the excitement about what the CGIAR can do. There has been some challenges that have been raised that we need to do better when it comes to how do we actually coordinate and how do we aggregate things in such a way that it is visibly contributing to the CAADP agenda. And that includes increasing our engagement and our interactions with the African Union Commission officials so that they are the ones who talk about what the CG is doing, not the CG talking about what we are doing. If we don't get to the point where the African Union themselves, in their meetings with presidents and all those things, will basically say we are very happy because we can see a lot of contribution coming from the CG system in supporting us to do A, B, C, D, we haven't arrived. So that's a huge challenge for us. And I think IFPRI is taking the lead in a lot of these initiatives and also hosting this event. The Continental Director for Africa, Simeon Ehui, would also be part of that process, and we will all need to work stronger. There is an engagement document that has been put together, and I just want Were to put that on just to show some key elements of that. We don't need to worry about the signing at this point in time. For those who are around, if you can sign after we have finished, but we're going to have a picture taken, a photo taken, that will show that collectively we all got together to basically indicate our belief that the CG can do better. And we really want to partner with the African Union for the realization of the goals of CAADP Kampala. So if we can see, oh, they are already there. We want to introduce them.
Yeah, thanks, Kwesi. So this is a document that captures the commitment of the CG to the implementation of the CAADP. So some initial statements, well, first of all, recognizing the leadership of the AUC, AUD, AWID and EPAD, and the REX in guiding the process. And as Godfrey said earlier, this really, we appreciate the inclusiveness of it. Affirming the importance and the significance of this food systems approach, celebrating the ambitions in the declaration regarding food output, trade, nutrition, poverty, welcoming the strategic focus on livestock food systems, governance, and climate resilience. Next slide, please. Affirming the support for this African common position on livestock food systems, applauding the emphasis on evidence-based decision-making, accountability, and performance monitoring. And then really welcoming the call in the declaration for international organizations such as the CGIAR to accompany this new phase in partnership, coordination, and responsiveness. And very critically acknowledging the role of African researchers, policymakers, and institutions. And then we come to what we want to commit to. First of all, aligning the technical and financial resources with the priorities of the declaration and strategy, supporting these African institutions and member states to integrate the strategy into their NASIPs and RASIPs, strengthening accountability systems, data platforms, and analytical capacities at national, regional, and continental levels, so committing to those. And then 2 more commitments. This is really the core of our work, providing science, innovations, analysis, and capacity strengthening to inform implementation, guide investment, and improve governance, right? And then particularly in climate smart agriculture, food systems, nutrition, in all those 6 areas. And then working in close partnership with African Centers of Excellence. We heard about one today, public and private stakeholders, civil society, to ensure this African-led high impact engagement. So these are the commitments in the thing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So can we appreciate that? Yeah. So this is a real solid beginning. And when they sign, they are basically signing to say, yes, we believe in these elements, and within our own centers and within our family of CGIAR, we are going to do what it takes to basically drive it. So that documentation is there. But let me call for the closing remarks before we get into the photo taking. And the closing remarks is going to be given by Felicitas Rorik, who is a Senior Policy Officer, German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ. Can we appreciate her as she walks with it? Yeah.
Now? Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed panelists, dear DGs of centers and DG representatives. I know I am the last person between you all and the coffee break, so I will try to be quick. As we close today's important discussion, I would like to congratulate you all on behalf of the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, for your thoughtful contributions that you made today. In particular, we are grateful to colleagues from the African Union Commission, from AUDA NEPAD, AU IBAR, and the CG centers, and other partners for sharing insights with us and helping shape the way forward for the CAADP agenda. The African Union is a strategic and trusted partner of Germany and the BMZ. It's evident by our strong commitment and joint efforts to transform agriculture and food systems across the continent. Today's side event has made one thing, again, very clear. The CAADP Kampala agenda marks a new era for Africa's agriculture and food systems. This is not merely a continuation of past efforts, it's a bold step forward. embracing a comprehensive food systems approach that prioritizes sustainability, resilience, and inclusion. The vision is ambitious, and rightly so. Africa is setting a high bar for itself, and we are very inspired by this level of ambition. But we also recognize that achieving the targets set out in the Kampala agenda will require stronger investments, deeper innovation, and tighter coordination across sectors and partners. Germany, through the BMZ, is committed to walking this path with you. We will continue to align our support with the priorities of the Kampala agenda and actively contribute to its implementation. To this end, we are already taking several concrete steps. At the continental level, we are preparing to second African experts to key selected African Union institutions, supporting the CAADP Kampala process via the GIZ Fund for strengthening human capacities in agriculture, rural development, and food security. At the country level, we will support the implementation of the Kampala agenda in selected AU member states through the GIZ Global Programme on Agricultural Systems and Policies. And additionally, we're working closely with AU institutions through initiatives like the GIZ Global Programme, catalyzing transformation towards sustainable livestock systems, which collaborates with AU IBER to enhance sustainability, resilience, and inclusivity in the livestock sector. We are also ensuring close alignment through mechanisms like the Agricultural Policy Dialogue between the AU and the German Federal Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and through our engagement in the CAADP Development Partner Coordination Group, where BMZ is proud to represent Germany. In all this, let us be clear, no single institution, government, or actor can achieve the goals of the Kampala agenda alone. That's why CGIAR's role is so vital. As one of the CGIAR's largest donors, Germany recognizes their capacity to provide science-driven, practical solutions for the challenges ahead. Its expertise in data systems, capacity development, and mutual accountability mechanisms will be essential to delivering the results of the Kampala agenda. We encourage CGIAR to deepen collaboration with AU institutions to ensure that the CAADP strategy and declaration are effectively translated into national and regional agri-food systems investments plans. And it's very encouraging to listen to the discussion that was taking place, to hear the willingness of the centers to align more strongly. And I want to congratulate you on the joint commitment statement that you have just presented to all of us. It's a great step forward. Germany, we will continue to closely cooperate with CGIAR's leadership in advancing climate-smart agriculture and fostering resilient livestock food systems, which are all central to Africa's transformation agenda. So, as we move forward, let us carry this momentum of today's discussion into action. The next decade of CAADP must be about delivering tangible results, transforming political will into real, positive change for farmers, communities, and ecosystems across the continent. BMZ looks forward to continuing this journey with all of you and to seeing the vision of the Kampala agenda become a reality. Thank you very much. And now I wish you a good coffee break.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now going to have a photo taken here, and I'd like the African Union Commission, Sam, I want you to also come and join. Please, please, you would also come join us. I was trying to get myself back on the name. Yeah. No, so let's get up in here and
we have some seated and then some standing.
some seated. Okay, so we push the chairs forward.
Yeah, the chairs.
The chairs can come forward. Ladies and gentlemen, whilst that is being done, I want to take the opportunity to thank all of you very much, because without you, we wouldn't have had this event. So thank you all so much for coming and bearing with us all the way to this point.